One of the projects that's been in the shop is a Mad River Canoe. It's a Rolex hull, but it has a bunch of wood trim in it, wood seats, wood gunnels, which I have replaced, and now I need to replace the cane in the seat. So I'm going to do a short little video here on removing the cane and replacing new, just sheet cane. I'm not going to weave the whole thing, but just applying a new sheet of cane into the little slot and the spline that goes in there to hold it in place. So this is the seat right here. I have cut out, the old, they had some string in there holding it together. First thing will be is to remove the spline that's in the little dado slot around the edge here. So the one-piece spline comes around as a joint right here. It's going to try and dig in and get the edge of that. I think I'm also going to need to just cut this string off of here because it's going to hold the spline in place. So we can dig in. So it's a piece of cane that is kind of a wedge shape. And get underneath it here. Hopefully I'll be able to pull it out without it coming apart in tiny little pieces. And now that I've got underneath it, I'm just going to grab with a pair of pliers here and see if it will come out in one piece. It's been glued in, so there's a bit of, that's what I was hoping not to have happen. Because it's been glued down in the bottom there, it's tearing apart. Not to mention it might very well be somewhat rotten as well. Now I've done other seats where, the spline is not that bad and it comes out in one easy piece. And this one is really jammed into there. This is not going to be an easy one, that's for sure. Okay, well that was a nasty bit of work. Total time to just get the spline out was about 15 minutes. Which, without all that glue in there, probably should have come out in about 3 minutes. So now I need to get in there and clean all of that excess out of there and get all of the cane that seems to be glued actually down to the frame itself off. I'm going to sand this and varnish it before putting in new cane. So I've never really seen the cane being sort of glued down to that inner portion there as much as this one has. I suppose it's just, I don't know, coats and coats of varnish. Did they actually put glue on that rim when they pressed the cane in? I'm not sure, but it came off pretty easy. But now the trick is to get all the gunk out of the inside. And it seems the only tool I can find in my shop here is a little beveled chisel. And just dig down in there. Seems to be coming out pretty nicely. Don't know how much glue they put down in the slot. I mean, normally you'd put a little glue down in the slot to hold the spline in. Usually the opposite is true. The spline is actually coming out when it's not supposed to. And having to put a new spline in, which means, usually you're going to end up replacing the cane because once you take that spline out, the cane is falling out and very hard to sort of get back into place, especially older ones. The replacement piece of cane is actually a pre-woven piece. I bought this some time ago from Lee Valley Tools. However, I don't believe they carry it anymore, so I'm fortunate that I have one piece left. I cut it carefully. I think I'll have one piece large enough for another seat down the road. So what thing is, I'm just going to cut it oversize a little bit here, and then I'm going to see if the other piece will be large enough. Now it'll depend, of course, on what seat frame it's going into down the road, but that would be big enough for a second seat just. So it's all rolled up. It's been rolled up for a while. I'm going to put it in some water, let it soak overnight, and tomorrow we can press it into the dado slot. I'm just laying it down in a Rubbermaid full of water, put a little weight on top of it, and we'll leave that till tomorrow. To press the cane into this slot, we're going to need a few basic tools. These I actually did purchase from Lee Valley Tools as a kit, and they are little hard, well, not little, they're quite large hardwood wedges that are meant to press the cane down into the slot, right down into the bottom. Then we just take a small razor blade and we will trim off once it's pressed in there and we're firmly fit, and then the spline goes in. The cane has been soaking overnight, which is probably a lot longer than necessary, but I didn't have time to soak it yesterday afternoon and then install it, so I just left it in there. So now it is much more pliable, but it does dry out quickly. So, you know, we need to get this into the slots in the seat frame as quick as possible, and then we'll let it dry. It will shrink a little bit when it dries up. Therefore, we don't want to press it in there super, super tight, but tight enough, and then when it shrinks and dries, we'll varnish over top of it so it doesn't continue to expand when wet and shrink when dry. Otherwise, it'll become brittle and crack. Of course, the important thing is to make sure that it is centered and that, you know, a line of weaving goes down the frame itself. I want to line up, see if I can anyways, line up one of these splines with the inside edge, or the longitudinal weave with the inside edge of the frame. Therefore, I'm just pressing down these pieces across here, and then the same I want to do on the ends if it works out that way. If I shift it down just a little, I think we're good there. And it comes perfectly on the other edge there. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of hold it in place by just gently tapping a wedge down in there. Now as we move this, I want to get one of these wedges to stay. Now I want to skew this a little bit and get this other corner in here. Hold that in. So I'm just going to pull somewhat tightly and try and get another corner in here. At this point, I don't want to just drive it all the way down. It might break the surrounding fibers. So I'm just putting them, I've already got one caught underneath there. Let's get that out. Now that's all the wedges I have. So the next course of action will be to maybe remove one and just start driving them down gently along. And the cane starts to go down into the bottom of the slot. So next that goes into the slot is what we call a little spline. And I don't know if it shows on the camera here, but the spline is kind of a egg shape with a bit of a taper towards the bottom. And all we're going to do is we're going to start in the middle here somewhere. And we're going to drive this down inside. But first thing we want to do is add some glue down into there to kind of hold everything in place. Now that the caning is done on the seat in the Mad River Canoe, I have just applied a couple of coats of varnish to the top side and bottom sides and the whole seat frame, and it's now installed back in the boat and ready to return to the customer. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, if you like these videos, do consider becoming a subscriber or share it with someone that you know might be interested in watching these videos, and we'll stay tuned for the next project in the shop. Take care.